I'm Barry Zaks. I'm the program director from Huntington Drug and Alcohol Counseling Center. I know a lot of you, which is great. And what I'm trying to do is get in front of people who I don't know, because I've spoken out in the community lately, and I'm realizing sometimes that we're speaking to the converted. People in my field, helping professionals and law enforcement, aren't surprised that alcohol and other drugs are behind of a lot of domestic violence and sexual assault and crime, petty and otherwise. It's no surprise to them. But and I meet people and I tell them what I do. And I remember when I'm here about 10 years. I come from a psychiatric hospital, institutional, corporate background. And I moved to Huntington Drug and Alcohol about 10 years ago. And I told a friend of mine who was a nurse at Huntington Hospital, which is 3 blocks away from us. We're in the Village Green, right in town. I said, I'm going to be heading up Huntington Drug and Alcohol Counseling Center. And she said, that's great. Where is that? So I know what part of my mission was and still is if nothing else, to let people know that we're there and who we are and what we do. So that was, I didn't expect that question. And even now, and we're doing a lot more than we used to in the community. Even now, I get a lot of people say, I didn't know about you. So I could have brought a PowerPoint and lectured you on stuff, but I just want you to know about us. So the first thing I want to say is this. People find out what I do and they ask me all sorts of questions about the drug problem in the world and the headlines and the community and the legalization issues. And what we try to do with our clients is help them develop a little humility, because drinking and drugging often magnifies sort of, swagger and arrogance. So I have to practice that and tell you that I've become pretty comfortable with saying I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I can't give you all the answers. And yet people hear what I do and expect me to, to have that. But here's what I do have. I have a real community-based counseling center. And we have licenses to provide 2 types of main services. We have prevention workers in 7 or 8 different school districts. We deal with youth from kindergarten up through high school, and we do evidence-based curricula and health classes. We work in summer camps. We do community presentations. And it's not the sort of stuff where we show a picture of a car crash and say, don't do drugs, that'll happen to you. That's interesting, but there's a lot of evidence that doesn't do much. It's not very effective. So we do evidence-based curricula. What we try to help youth take a look at is what we call risk factors and protective factors. Apparently, there is a lot of credible science that the later on that the onset of drug and alcohol experiments starts, the less likely someone's develops a vulnerability biologically to become addicted. So what we try to do is help raise awareness in youth, what's happening in the media, what's happening in their families, what it's like to talk about feelings, and get rid of some of the myths and stereotypes about alcohol and drugs, because kids are going to learn this stuff from their phones and from their friends. So why shouldn't they learn it from people who can tell them, something that's not advertising? And that's what we try to tell parents, because parents come to people like me and they say, I really don't want to discuss this with my kids because I don't want to expose them to the seamy side of alcohol and drugs, as if the kids aren't already overexposed to the seamy side of alcohol and drugs. Believe me, But also on site, we provide counseling, group, family, and individual counseling. And I was talking to somebody before the meeting, and it's sort of old-fashioned, but what we provide as services is holistic counseling. There's a lot of focus lately, and there's proper places for a variety of new medications and modalities and all sorts of intellectual stuff. But I really, really believe that drugs and alcohol affect the whole family. And over the years, I've met people who are family members who don't drink or use drugs, but their children, parents, significant others do. And they suffer more often from depression, anxiety, insomnia, impaired job performance, distracted driving than sometimes the people who are drinking and drugging. And they'll go to health professionals or helping professionals, and they'll be prescribed pills or you know, offered some sort of symptom relief, but not always does someone say, well, what's going on at home? So we provide counseling for people who have developed some problems related to their use of alcohol and drugs, but also, and we're seeing growth in the people that contact us, we're providing counseling, professional help for people who are affected by alcohol and drug use around them, which in my humble opinion is everyone I've ever met. Sometimes people who have an alcohol or drug problem have an easier time coming to us. They know they have a problem, you know. So we're trying to attract more family members, and I'm a real believer in family systems as being the key to recovery. Couple things, we're open Monday through Friday. We are funded by the New York State, Suffolk County, and the town of Huntington to provide services. So that we take most insurance, including Medicaid products, but ability to pay has never been a barrier. Because we're funded, we have a sliding scale that is beyond reasonable. Absolutely nobody gets turned away. And I put some brochures and some pens, because people have swag back there, and I'm hoping you'll all take it, because you never know when you'll say, oh, here's a phone number. And I invite calls. I like to talk. I have a lot of experience. I'm in the field since 1997, which is a long time ago. And I don't know it all, which frees me up to tell you what I do know. And I do know that we're up against something very powerful. I heard the inspector say, you know, talking about a woman driving or a man driving with a 1-year-old, and I don't know why people do this. Well, it's easy to fall into the trap of trying to impose some sort of rational thought process on something that is not rational. You know, the power of alcohol and drugs on some people and some families goes way beyond rational thinking and logic. So part of our counseling isn't saying, you know, look, you know, talking down to people and being the authority. It's helping people take a look at what they get out of the power of what's happening to them, taking a look at their own strengths, their own possibilities, and helping them access it. But the first step for some people who give up alcohol and drugs is like people who give up any kind of relationship. It's a sense of loss, it's difficult, it's unfamiliar, and people go back to what's familiar. Sometimes in my field, what I've seen is the biggest relapse trigger for people who have successfully put down alcohol and other drugs is when life goes well. They start to feel better and think clearer, and it's pretty sneaky stuff that we're dealing with. So I really think people need services, professional help as well as self-help, not just to put down the alcohol and drugs, but to stay stopped and to recover from the fog that people don't see. That could take a long time. I've gotten phone calls from clients that tell me that they're a year completely sober and they're still clearing up out of the fog, but they never saw the fog. And I've had family members well into their own recovery who tell me they're still clearing up and developing healthy boundaries and communication. And it's very difficult for the families to stop being the private investigator and the cop and the inquisitor of the family and the one keeping it all together, which is another illusion. But anyway, so I have a lot to say about addiction, but what we do, and as long as I am in charge, I will commit to this. We have no waiting list. Somebody asked me, well, what's happening in Huntington? Well, I see some things happening. I think in part as a result of some of us doing more community work lately, we're getting a lot more phone calls and screenings. And our census has risen by about 25% lately, which is great. But we have no waiting list. We'll get people right in. Their ability to pay is not a barrier. Transportation is not a barrier. The HART bus system comes to our front door. In the nice weather, we have clients who take their bicycles to us. We are not concerned with employment status. I find addiction to be very democratic. I've met people of every imaginable race, ethnicity, sexual identity, age, religion, very democratic. And everybody has myths about, oh, this is a problem in the lower socioeconomic neighborhoods, as if behind those nice doors in Huntington Harbor there's not the same problems. So it's very democratic.
So I'm thinking that you have all this knowledge. Do you deliver speaking engagements to youth groups?
We do. Our prevention is in the schools. Many evenings have lately presented in front of PTA groups, parent groups. We're working in the fall to present something right in the village, right in the town of Huntington, geared for residents, on some of the stuff that's happening in the headlines and what we can do about it. By we, I don't mean me. I mean we. So yes, we do plenty of that. And take my number, call, email me, ask questions. We're happy to come talk. So.
Can I just clarify? So David, Huntington Drug and Alcohol works under the umbrella of the Huntington Youth Bureau, which is fully funded by the town of Huntington. And they are one of many other programs that exist to serve youth. Tri Community is funded through the town, which I know you're very familiar with.
But I was thinking, he's a good speaker.
Yeah.
Bring him to the.
Well, they do. The prevention program goes out to the camps in the summer and speaks to the younger
Okay.
set.
Oh, yeah.
And the
And
prevention programs,
my
as you
staff
mentioned,
are good
is
speakers,
run
too.
throughout all 8 school districts within the.
But thank you. Because I'm not reading or PowerPointing. So I wanted to mention a couple other things, especially that we're part of the Huntington Youth Bureau. We don't just treat youth, we treat adults, we treat youth. The youngest client we've had is 12, the oldest is 87. I'm waiting to break the record on both ends. There's nothing wrong with that. We deliver age-appropriate talks as well as curricula in schools, and our counseling is age-appropriate and culturally appropriate. We speak Spanish, which I want people to know. Not only is there a large Spanish-speaking population in Huntington and Huntington Station especially, but we'll get people, maybe a young person, youngish, and maybe they speak English fine, but their family doesn't. So they'll go home and they'll say, "Oh, my counselor says I'm doing great," So we don't let that happen. We can bring people in, and we have Spanish-speaking counselors to say maybe they're not doing so great, But so we really want to have our hooks in the community, and being bilingual is really important. Our receptionists speak Spanish. It's not as if we need to translate things for people. People come to us. We do a lot of trainings on-site and off-site. I have the receptionist and the billing specialist come to a lot of our trainings. The first impression people get is from the people who answer the phones, the people at the front desk. I've had people come to our agency and I invite you all just to come say hello and say, "Oh, they thought they were going to be moldy ceiling tiles in a dank basement," no offense. No, this is not dank, and nothing's moldy. But no, it's a warm, welcoming, inviting environment. There's no red circles with lines to it. It says, "No, don't do this." We're not here to do anything other than be welcoming, because people come in crisis, and they're already maybe been through the system and been through other counseling agencies and been spoken to in certain matters with a lot of stigma. So the first thing we want people to feel is welcomed, and that goes to the community as well. We want you to come visit me, come call me. I'm not a salesman. We're not for profit. The drugs and alcohol do the selling. I don't have to do that. But we're really here as part of the Youth Bureau, as part of the community, for service. And I did not get this job so I can push papers around and look at budgets, and although that happens, as Janine knows, but we're here to connect with people. We tell our clients that one of the keys of recovery, not just not drinking, but regaining their skills and spirituality, is connecting. And so we try to hook people up maybe with group counseling, suggest they go outside to AA meetings or family Al-Anon meetings, because connection is a big part, and we want to be connected more to you. So I come from an interesting background. I think 3 times today different people have asked me. So I've been on both sides of the fence. I was a patient in a 28-day rehab years ago, and 28 was some sort of magical number, many presidents ago already. And had you told me I'd be running programs, let alone doing anything in the field, I would have fallen down. That's about the silliest thing I ever heard. So I know what it's like to be on both sides of the desk, which is why I insist on being so welcoming to people and non-judgmental. This affects people in every family of everyone I've ever met. So it's easy to look at those people, the ones who lie in the street, and there are people like that. But the typical person who has a drug or alcohol problem is not lying in the street. Actually, they're going to work and paying their bills, and I don't know if there is such a typical person. So I've had patients and clients who have been unemployed their whole life, and I've had NASA engineers, rabbis and priests, social workers and counselors, and everybody in between. So last thing, or almost last thing out of me, because the headlines are very powerful and very frightening, there's fentanyl, there's overdosing. There's another thing I don't want to get swept under the rug. The number one, by far, drug problem around here and in the country is alcohol. And typically the people that come to us, we have patients and family members of people who use every kind of drug, sedatives and heroin and pain pills and cocaine. But by far, the number one problem that brings people our way is alcohol. And so I don't want to minimize the impact of that. I've spoken to the medical examiners in all offices in both Nassau and Suffolk, and they have both told me that between 75 and 90% of the fatal overdoses that they see were not from people using opiates. They were from people using opiates mixed with alcohol, cocaine, Xanax, etc. So I'm not really as interested as you may think in what drug do you use as much as what is your relationship with being impaired, being numbed out, and that's again, part of the holistic approach, is really addressing the whole person rather than just, let's not use that drug, maybe you can use that drug. Last thing, this will be the last thing, I was a graduate, I grew up in Melville, I used to hang out at the Balcony movie theater, if anybody remembers that. Did some research for the field there, but the smell of marijuana is pretty pervasive, right? Anyone been to Manhattan lately? That island reeks, man. So we're up against an individual who wants to defend their using. We're up against a family that minimizes it. We're up against a community where it's pretty socially acceptable. We're up against advertising, which is very sneaky, because a lot of times you're on Facebook or looking at articles and information and news stories that are really, advertising. So that's why I don't have all the answers, because this is much bigger than me. It's much bigger than you, and that's why we need, to get everybody together on this. And that's what we do with families. Families get dysfunctional around somebody's drinking and using drugs. So sometimes family recovery, what that looks like, is getting the whole family to revolve around the recovery process. And I don't believe in shortcuts. People want a quick answer. Parents will bring us their kid and say, okay, essentially fix my kid. I'll be back later, And we've learned how to very politely and in an empowering way say, can't do that, but we can do that. So anyway, I have a lot more to say. As soon as I'm finished, I remember a million things that I wanted to say. But what I really need you to do is to call us, ask questions, come see us, and you never know when you'll need our number, because I know that you have family and you have friends that may be receptive one day, if not now, to reaching out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Inspector, Deputy Inspector Kaplan, I'm Sal Farrow, Councilman Sal Farrow is here from the town. I would just like to let everyone know, if you don't know, Janine Salgado was recently appointed as the Executive Director of our filling that leadership role there.
Yes,
Thank you.
And to echo what Barry said, please, at any point in time, call. My door's always open. We are there all the time. I'm out at community meetings. I'm out at community events. We support all the youth, with the support of the town. It is really, by far, the